is up, everybody? I am Steve Espew, and welcome back to Draft for Dummies, for Dummies by Dummies. This week we're going to be going over competitive talk. What do things mean? What are all these competitive Pokemon players saying when they say certain phrases? If you like this kind of content, don't forget to like and subscribe. I greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to drop a comment to let me know what you would like to see next. But let's get right into the video. Alright, so what exactly are the kinds of phrases that we're going to be going over? Mainly, the ones that we're going to be seeing are abbreviations, which are just shortened names of items, concepts, and or Pokemon, and then certain strategies. There are certain names for certain kinds of strategies some people will use, or different kinds of play styles, so it's nice to know exactly what people are talking about when they say these kinds of phrases. And then right after that, we have concepts. It's very similar to strategies, where it's just more so like certain archetypes a Pokemon is doing, a particular move set for a certain thing, that sort of deal. But that is generally what we're going to be going over this week, is just these general three categories. And to start off with abbreviations, mainly the ones we're going to be seeing are shortened names as well as just abbreviations like I mentioned before. Shortened names are going to be like band for choice band, specs, scarf for choice specs and scarf, and then just resist berries for anyone who is going to be talking about the berries that decrease the amount of damage from super effective hits. And then for abbreviations, it's mainly just for shortened names. For choice band, it would be CB, AV would be assault vest, OKO, one hit KO, or one hit knockout. That general thing, it's a fairly easy concept, but a lot of people do get a little confused about this. Some other things that we might see as well would be shortened names for certain Pokemon, or just general nicknames for them as well. You see this a lot with like Incin being Incineroar, Nape being Infernape, as well as Roaring Moon being Roaring Mid. Those are certain things that some people may say just to shorten the name. If you aren't 100% sure what someone means, try to think what an extended version of that name may be called, and just generally try to think what the other person is talking about by looking at their team and just seeing what fits best with what they're saying if you ever get confused. Also, disclaimer, there are a lot more examples of these out there. There are just a few examples I thought of off the top of my head. Okay, bye. And then on to strategies. Certain things, generally speaking, it's just talking about certain kinds of archetypes that you would like to run your team being. I'll be going a lot further into these specific strategies in future videos. Each of these going to be getting very specific videos in the future, and I'm even going to be bringing in some guests to speak on them as well. And starting off, we have Hyper Offense. Hyper Offense, or HO, would be a very strong, crushing offensive core with very little defense. A lot of time, hyper offense does require a lot of hazard stacking as well to get chip off on certain things, and because Focus Sash Pokemon do stand a big issue for hyper offense if they don't have any hazards up, because they will always be able to live one hit and potentially be able to KO their very frail, strong Pokemon. That's mainly what people are talking about when you say hyper offense. And then for stall, it's pretty much the exact opposite. It's very little offense, and it relies mainly on bulky Pokemon to be able to wear down their opponents over time, using both status as well as hazards. Stall is one of the most annoying playstyles to both play against as well as play is, because even if you miss up one single turn on your stall team, one of your pillar Pokemon ends up going down, then that really throws off your entire game plan. And on the inverse side, when you're playing against someone who's playing stall really well, it's really annoying because it's super hard to break through really well built stall cores. So stall has gained a bit of a reputation for being annoying. And then there's balance, which is a good mix of both offense and defense, whereas hyper offense has very little defense. Balance has a good, balance of offense and defense, being able to do both stall as well as offense really well depending on the situation that the game has turned into. Most people like to run balance, and that is mainly because you can run a little bit more offense or a little bit more bulk depending on the week, as well as pivot really well into each other depending on the game status. And then there are generally gimmicks, which are basically niche Pokemon or movesets that are mainly used to take your opponent by surprise. In draft, gimmicks are incredibly important to the health of the format, because you don't want to be running something incredibly predictable every single week, and that allows your opponent to be able to predict exactly what you're going to do, and running these gimmicks will allow you to both mix it up as well as potentially sweep your opponent in the late game because they didn't expect something. And then finally, we got concepts. These are very similar to strategies, but they're more so on a one or two Pokemon basis on what exactly is going on with them. So I would say that the previous strategies that I talked about were more team-wide, where this is very singular or two Pokemon strategies. So then first off, we have Volt Turn. Volt Turn is basically when you spam a lot of pivoting moves to be able to get in and out of battle really easily. And this can be very annoying for your opponent to deal with, because if you're switching between, say, an electric type into things like a bug type using U-turn, a ground type move that is aimed at the electric type will be then hitting the resisted bug type switching in. And this will also be somewhat going for in the opposite direction as well, because you're going to be using U-turn on, say, a flying type, and you're going to be switching into an electric type to be able to then use Volt Switch right afterwards. They have a very good overlap there with being able to cover each other's weaknesses, and it's a very common strategy to see. And then next up we got Subseed. Basically it's when you spam Substitute and Leech Seed to be able to stall out your opponent's health as you're slowly leeching their health and staying protected behind a substitute. This is most commonly seen on things like Breloom, who are able to hold a Toxic Orb with their Poison Heal ability and be able to get massive healing off from Poison Heal. Though a lot of the time you do just see generally bulky Pokemon holding leftovers do this as well. And then next up we have a Win Con. Win Con is basically just a win condition, and it's the way that you plan on winning the game. Your win con will be completely different depending on what stage of the battle you're in. It's just being able to recognize when your win con has changed is one of the biggest things to recognize midway through the battle, because at the start of the battle you may plan on sweeping with a Cinderace, for example, but then after, say, you get crit or something and your Cinderace is at low HP, now you need to pivot to be able to figure out what your late game win condition will be. And then we have the Weather War. A lot of people who play in Gen 5 will know exactly what this means, but basically it's when two opposing teams try to remove each other's weather. You mainly see this with Sun and Rain teams, because Sun teams have a lot of very strong grass types with Chlorophyll to be able to sweep a potential Rain team. However, Rain is also able to take care of all the fire types on a Sun team. So they do have a very good overlap with being able to counter each other. However, it really does matter which one has the weather up to see who has the advantage. You do see this sometimes with Sandstorm and the new Snow ability as well, especially considering Snow got a massive buff in Gen 9, but generally, you do typically see it with Sun and Rain. But that will be the video for this week. I greatly appreciate you guys watching all the way through. Don't forget to like, comment, and sub if you don't want to miss any more of my content. Of course, feel free to let me know what you would like to see me cover next, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.